Welcome to Judicial Dollars and Cents, brought to you by Anders Virtual CFO Services team from all across the United States. I'm John Scott, and in each episode, we'll shine a light on the financial side of the legal world, turning law firm numbers into impact-driven stories. From taxes and profitability to practice growth and leadership, we sit down with law firm innovators who are shaping the future of the profession. Let's dive in, right here on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Hey, and welcome back to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services for law firms, and each week we sit down with successful attorneys, legal innovators, and business leaders to explore what it really takes to build a thriving law firm. We go beyond the courtroom to discuss leadership, profitability, operations, technology, AI, and the strategies that help firms grow, scale, and create lasting value. Whether you're a managing partner, an emerging firm leader, or someone passionate about the future of the legal profession, our goal is to provide practical insights that you can put to work immediately. Today, we're pleased to welcome Anderson Franco, the founder of Anderson Franco Law in the San Francisco Bay Area. Anderson is a former insurance defense attorney who now exclusively represents injured individuals throughout Northern California. His firm focuses on serious personal injury matters, and one of the things that makes his practice unique is his commitment to serving both English and Spanish-speaking clients directly. As the son of a Salvadoran immigrant, Anderson has built his practice around the belief that clients should fully understand their cases and have direct access to their attorney. He's also built an impressive trial and appellate background and has earned recognition as a super lawyer rising star for many years. And he's been active in organizations supporting diversity and access to the legal profession. Anderson, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, John. Thanks for having me.
Hey, as our listeners know, I love to hear attorneys' origin stories. Can you tell me what drove you to law school and what got you to this point in your career?
Sure. So I grew up in San Francisco Bay Area. As you mentioned, my parents migrated from El Salvador. And growing up, the law was kind of a mysterious thing. There were definitely moments where we didn't have access to the legal system or didn't know the legal system. I didn't know any lawyers. So growing up, I understood that the law was powerful and that there was a need for it, but I just lacked the access to it, at least me and within my community. So that was always kind of in the back of my mind. So then I went to college at UC Berkeley. I knew I was interested in law. I didn't know where it would take me. I studied rhetoric at Berkeley, and then right after during college, I kind of learned sort of an interest in more kind of consumer law, more client side facing, more litigation. I discovered that kind of through pre-litigation kind of clubs during college. So that motivated me to apply to law school, and then I went to UC Berkeley for law. And then during law school, it's kind of where I had a greater understanding of what personal injury law looked like, and that's in kind of how I can help people or use the law to help people. But coming out of law school, I kind of felt that I wanted to learn before I could represent people, at least injured people. I felt like I should understand the system. So after law school, I actually went to a defense side firm, insurance defense, where I was representing insurance companies and defendants. And I did that deliberately with the understanding of it was going to kind of color my understanding of the law and how it works in litigation. And it was great. It was great because I learned how the insurance industry works, how insurance adjusters work. So that now, fast forward to now, I now exclusively represent people who are injured, so personal injury claims. I negotiate with adjusters and insurance defense attorneys all the time because I kind of have a stronger understanding after having done that for a while. And what's beautiful is I'm also a native Spanish speaker. So now I get to fully apply my Spanish skills, and a majority of my clients are monolingual Spanish speakers. So that's kind of how I've got to where I am today. So I've been practicing law for about 12 or 13 years.
I love the fact that you had the foresight to go to the defense side, the insurance side, so that it's got to be really beneficial on the side you're on now. So tell me, what are some of the biggest misconceptions that people might have about how insurance companies evaluate injury claims?
I think I think the law in litigation, it's very adversarial process that you have a plaintiff and you have a defendant. But just because it's adversarial doesn't mean it has to be combative. So when I was representing insurance companies, some of the misconceptions I saw is sometimes as an insurance defense attorneys, well, I always had an insurance adjuster who controlled the pocketbook, who asked me for information and documents. So I would ask for, when I was on the defense, I'd ask the other side, the plaintiff attorney, for information. And so many times, because it's an adversarial system, opposing counsel were combative, or they thought that I was trying to pull a fast one on them, when really I need this information to be able to give it to my adjuster so that they could evaluate it and then figure out what kind of resolution we could reach. So what I learned through this process sometimes is just because we are opposing attorneys doesn't mean that we are on opposing teams. Sometimes we could work together towards a common goal. Now, I say sometimes because sometimes it's we don't see things eye to eye, but many times we can work together with the opposing side to resolve the issues. So that's kind of one of my bigger takeaways is learning that at the end of the day, insurance companies need information to be able to make decisions. And if you don't give it to them, the cases are going to drag on, and no one wins from that, other than the attorneys who bill on an hourly basis. So that's definitely a major misconception.
I love that fact that if you collaborate together rather than being adversarial, that you could close so many more cases, and it would be beneficial not only to the insurance company but also to the plaintiff.
Definitely. There's even so now as a plaintiff, there's what I do is I pick up the phone, I talk to opposing counsel, ask them, what do you need for your insurance company to evaluate this case? And instead of going through, sometimes with the discovery process, it takes a long time. Sometimes I tell them like, look, you don't need to submit discovery. I'll just give you the documents or I'll give you whatever information you need, because I recognize that one, you're entitled to it, and two, you need it to push the case forward. So exchange of information is valuable in our industry, and I'm glad that I learned that early on.
So let's assume that I've just been in an automobile accident. I don't think it's my fault, but what advice would you give me or anyone else that's been harmed to do immediately right after the accident?
So there's a lot of things you should do immediately. So immediately you should see a doctor to make sure you're all right, or at least to have an understanding of what your injuries are. I'd say the far majority of accidents, fender benders, you have just soft tissue injuries, whiplash, something that doesn't appear in an x-ray or a CT scan. But still, you want that guidance from a doctor, and you want that for two reasons. One, so the doctor can make sure that you're not having internal bleeding, to make sure that you're going to be fine, but also so a doctor can document what happened, that the mechanism of injury that you can eventually use to document or as evidence to show insurance companies what occurred. So that's one, is get medical treatment. Second, what you should not do is speak to the opposing insurance company. So after an automobile accident, opposing carriers will often call you on a recorded line to ask you questions of what happened, and it's a recorded line, so anything you say can be evidence. So instead, and oftentimes early on after an accident, perhaps you still have adrenaline, so you don't feel the pain. Perhaps all the details are still kind of murky in your head, so you're not able to verbalize exactly what happened. So in those interviews, you can say things that hurt your case. So that's why you have to be very careful. So either one way of responding to opposing insurance carriers is say you prefer to respond in writing, for example, or via email. So that way you don't have the pressure of a phone call or the pressure of what you say during the recording. So I'd say those are the two important things to know. And then I'd say the third important thing is, at the scene of the accident, if possible, call 911 or call for police to investigate the accident, because then they often write a report, and the report ends up being useful in explaining also what happened. A lot of this boils down to preserve evidence as soon as you can.
That's good advice, and also shut your mouth. Don't say
Yeah,
anything.
yeah. Be careful with what you say, definitely, because anything, any party to a claim, whatever you say is considered evidence, but what your attorney says is not evidence. So that's why shut your mouth is well said.
Well, that's like my wife and I sit around and we watch the news together occasionally, and there'll be this tragedy: a house burned down or a hurricane came through, and the news person says to the person who's been aggrieved, "What are you thinking right now?" It's like, that's the dumbest question ever. And why would you ever agree to go on the news and respond to that question? But
Right.
I'm going down a rabbit hole here. So let me ask you a question. Does your firm use a case management system? And if so, which one?
So yes, we love our case management system. We use CasePeer. CasePeer is great because it has a lot of automated templates, and so I create a lot of letters. Well, take a step back. The personal injury process early on is very predictable. So what I have is I have a bank of letters that are templates that I use and I send out periodically during the lifetime of a case to my clients so that my clients are aware of what's happening. They often have a lot of the similar questions. So what's awesome is a program like CasePeer has templates that auto-populate key information like client's address or their date of injury. So like, it tailors a letter a little bit more. So what I've noticed is it not only makes me more productive, but it also helps me keep my clients more informed and better customer service.
You're kind of speaking my language here with the cases have predictable lifespans, by type, right? Motor vehicle accidents are different than med mal. But if you looked at your inventory of case matters and could then segment those by type, you can predict how much they're worth and at what stage they're in so that that, let's say a motor vehicle accident might be 8 to 10 months. At some point, you're going to get a settlement. And we help firms, build forecast around that. Is that something that you do internally?
Yes, definitely. So within CasePeer also there's rating systems and estimate of the value of the case, and you can we always adjust it as the case progresses. But you're definitely right. The more you do this kind of work, the more you see the similar cases. But I'm always mindful that while a lot of the cases are similar, each case is different. It has a unique fact pattern. Each person is different. The injury affects them differently, affects their lives and their work differently. So I am mindful of that from a bird's eye view, it's the same pattern. But as their only representative in the injury claim, I'm cognizant that I have to dig deeper into the details that make their case unique. But going back to what you said, agree that having that predictable lifespan and projecting to the future is helpful. It's helpful for both from a business perspective, but also from a client-facing customer service perspective.
Right. Keeping them updated as to what to expect next would be invaluable to a plaintiff who's probably never gone through this experience before.
Exactly.
So
So that's why you always have to keep them, yeah, teach them. Sorry, go on.
that's all right. Turning our attention a little bit to AI, and AI is, I'll say, relatively new, although it's not. It just is expanding rapidly in the legal space. How, if at all, are you using AI, and what are you using it for? Give me a good use case for it.
So AI is great. We definitely use AI. So we employ it a lot with marketing. So it's kind of we both as we use AI to generate ideas in terms of marketing, what we can do in terms of improving SEO, improving appearing in LLM searches. So we work with it both of generating ideas and then creating ideas with it and implementing, kind of like rewriting our website or how to appear in Google. So with marketing, it definitely helps. Also, a lot legal. There's already a lot of research websites that already implement AI in it, so it makes legal research a lot easier. It makes it easier to respond to arguments, develop arguments. Frankly, in this day and age, I feel If you're a lawyer and you're not using AI, it's damn near malpractice, because AI is just so powerful in terms of arming attorneys with the tools and the knowledge that we need to best represent our clients.
I couldn't agree more that, it is this powerful tool with the right oversight can really help us do more. And I wouldn't advocate that we do more so that we can actually just do more, but give us some efficiencies to get back some work-life balance. I liken it to, and you're probably not old enough to remember this, but what is Google Sheets or Excel today used to be Lotus and VisiCalc, the spreadsheets that we had. Before that, we did everything with pencil on green bar paper. And, it's just allowed us to be so much more efficient. The other analogy I can give you on AI is NIL in the college sports area. It has leveled the playing field for all schools, not just the blue bloods and the perennially good teams who were giving money under the table to teams anyway. Now it's all above board, and it allows the smaller and mid-sized schools or the smaller and mid-sized law firms to compete with the bigger firms because it gives them this technological advantage. So
Definitely. You're right. With what I do now as a solo attorney, it'd be much harder to run my practice the way I do now just 10 years ago. Just the advancement of AI and also other case management systems like CasePeer. These systems help solo attorneys like me be able to competently represent the clients that I do, compared to in the past, just like 10 years ago or so.
right, without that technology, you couldn't do half of what you're doing, and you'd probably be happy and be making a decent living, but now you can do so much more and serve many more clients.
Much more
So
efficient. Yeah.
if you were going to start your firm today from scratch, what's one thing that you would do different than you did as it actually happened?
What I would have done differently is I would have built a better foundation for my website. So I personally think that a website's helpful in attracting clients and yeah, ultimately growing as a firm. I think that I developed my website kind of piecemeal. What would have been better, a better foundation would have been going into my website, building it strategically, investing more money into building a good website. Because ultimately what happened is I hired a developer, they developed the website, and over time I realized that developer didn't have the greatest sense of SEO or understand how I could appear in search. So I had to improve that over time. So my biggest, in hindsight, I should have invested the money in a strong website and with a developer who knew what they were doing.
I'm glad you went back to SEO and LLM search because I think one of your use cases for AI was marketing, and SEO was the tool that we all used years ago, and now it is migrating to LLM search. How are you positioning yourself to show up when the client goes to chat or whatever AI tool they're using and says, I've just been in an accident in Northern California. Who do I hire? What are you doing to show up in those LLM searches?
So in the sea of personal injury law firms, it's hard for me to compete with the giant firms. I'm just a solo guy in Northern California. So I try to differentiate myself and who I am. And my differentiators are kind of my origin story. I'm a former insurance defense attorney who understands how insurance companies work. I'm a native Spanish speaker, so I don't need a translator to communicate with my clients. And also because I'm a solo attorney and I have a smaller docket of cases, I provide direct access to attorneys. So those are my differentiators that I kind of just put out into the ether to attract the sort of clients that are interested in sort of services I provide. An attorney who enjoys the practice of law, who can speak to you in your language, and who you can trust, who's going to do a good job. That's sort of what I project, and that's kind of my marketing. Yeah, I guess that's my marketing profile.
Well, and as we know, it will be ever changing. The algorithms will change, so we just have to stay on it and figure out how to stay relevant. Hey, what's
Right.
one thing?
Yeah, go
What
on.
is one thing that if you were talking to an attorney who's just about to graduate from law school, wants to go into plaintiff work, what would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to find a firm where they can learn and grow. Learn and grow law. So right after law school, as a lot of people know, law school doesn't actually teach you how to practice law. That's something you have to learn. So the first year or two, I would tell that person, learn the practice of law. And to do that, what you need is a firm or a mentor who's going to take the time to teach you what you need to learn. And that's the primary goal. And then the next step after that is learn the business of law. Because at the end of the day, law is a practice, but if you're going to start your own firm, it's a business. Ultimately, a solo attorney like me, I have a business, and that's the primary category. And my business happens to be the practice of law. But really, if you don't have good business acumen, it's difficult to have a successful business. So first, right after law school, learn the law, and then soon learn the business of law, so that you're empowered to be able to go on your own if that's what you want, or you can become partner at another firm, attracting business if that's another route.
I love the emphasis on point number 2 about learning the business of law, because most of you attorneys did not get an undergraduate degree in accounting or finance. And it's important to know how much operating cash you need to keep in the firm, how you have to reconcile the IOLTA accounts all the time. There can be no margin for error there. And how do you manage the bottom line? I mean, how do you pay, if you were to hire associate attorneys and paralegals, how do you pay them competitively to keep them, but also be able to pay the rest of your bills and make a decent living? And none of that is in most of the attorney skill sets that we meet. And that's where outside vendors come in to help educate, not tell you what to do, but give you the information and the data so that you can make good decisions. We'll also help you set operating cash targets so that you don't look at the operating account and go, oh, I'm going to take a distribution, not realizing that next week payroll is due. But I'm digressing again.
You're definitely spot on, because as solo attorneys, we wear so many hats, between not just the practice of law, but marketing, but also the back end financials, and there's always a lot to do, and outsourcing it is always helpful, especially, at least for me. I was never a numbers guy. Math was never my forte. So especially for me, dealing with the finances is a scary world. And the California State Bar really oversees IOLTA accounts, so you really have to be mindful in how you practice.
I have a funny story about operating cash. It'll be quick. Mom and son firm. Son did the books, and they were not a client yet. And mom looked at the account and said, hey, there's $500,000 here. Let's make a distribution. And we said, well, wait a minute. Let's talk to son. How long has it been since the accounts have been reconciled? And it was 6 months. And so by the time he reconciled it, got in the transactions that weren't comprehended, there was maybe $150,000 of cash. And we needed that to pay our bills over the next month or so. And so she got really excited about being able to take money out, but in reality, she didn't have good data. So, hey, before we wrap up, I want to kind of go down a different path, and I want to talk about 2 things: Vegas and Italy. So tell me, when you go to Vegas, where is your favorite place to stay? And then we're going to go to Italy.
Oh, I'm a big fan of Vegas. I've been going there multiple times a year since I turned 21. Vegas trips have changed in terms of their spirit over time. But more recently now, when I go with my wife to Vegas, big fan of staying at Winter Encore, and just lounging by the pool, and we enjoy all the restaurants there. It's just a fun getaway, especially because it's only an hour flight away from San Francisco. And actually, in fact, I just last night booked a flight to Vegas. It's going to be a day trip, because my favorite college football team, Berkeley, is playing in Vegas in October. So I actually just booked a day trip to Vegas. That's how often we go.
That'll be awesome. Now tell me about pizza in Naples.
I'm a huge pizza fan. So just last year, my wife and I did a trip to Naples and all we did is eat exclusively pizza, nothing else. That's what we had for lunch and dinner, and we ate at the top restaurants in the world, or the top restaurants for pizza, which many of them are around Naples, and absolutely love Naples. Plenty of people told me don't go to Naples. I still went anyways and had a blast. If anyone likes pizza, I'd say Naples is great. New York also is great, but Naples is my favorite city for pizza.
Well, when we just went to Italy and we're told to avoid Naples, but I will go there the next time we go and try the pizza out. Hey, Anderson, before we wrap up, what is the best way for folks to get a hold of you to learn more about you and your law firm?
Sure. So my website's andersonfranco.com. I'm also on all the socials as Abogado Anderson Franco. I produce Spanish content, but if you just search me, Anderson Franco, I'm happy to speak to anyone who I can help.
Anderson, thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you all for listening to Judicial Dollars and Cents, where the business of law meets the practice of law. If you enjoyed today's episode, please like, follow, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us grow and ensures that you never miss an episode. Our mission is simple. It's to help law firm owners build stronger businesses, deliver exceptional client experiences, and create firms that last for generations. I'm John Scott with Anders Virtual CFO Services, and we'll see you next time on Judicial Dollars and Cents. Thanks for joining us on Judicial Dollars and Cents, presented by Anders Virtual CFO Services. If you found value in today's conversation, be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast. To learn more about how Anders helps law firms strengthen their financial foundations and drive growth, visit anderscpa.com. Until next time, keep making smart decisions that make perfect sense.